Hi, I'm John. This is my show, An American Scheme, where I'm proving that Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's actual mother. So in the world of Michael Jackson, when you want to talk about like conspiracies, right? I would think, okay, so anybody that knows stuff about the conspiracy world, okay, Michael Jackson comes, his story intertwines right into that world, because he's got all the frickin' Illuminati imagery, and he's got all of that stuff. He's really into magic, and I don't hide that. It's the weird things where I cross, like, so, I can get involved with the conspiracy people with Michael Jackson, but then I'm telling a different story, and then because I'm telling this different story, they don't really like that part of what I do. And then when I talk to Michael Jackson fans, I can tell a lot about Michael Jackson stuff, but then I tell this other story about him, and they don't like what I'm doing. So here's this weird thing for me. It's like, okay, my story directly, like, boom, right smack dab in the middle of Michael Jackson, and my story smack dab runs right into the whole conspiracy world, right? But this Michael Jackson story, for some reason, I can't get the people that are like the Michael Jackson fans, I can't get them to get into my story. The people that are the conspiracy people, I can't get them to investigate my story. And it puts me in a spot like that's where I get stuck. And it's like, I have so much information, and it's like I'm trying to learn how to make videos as short and as quick as I can be and make a direct point that can be quick and get people to, because when I start telling the story, I end up making 30-minute, 40-minute videos. It's hard for me not to make a 30-minute video. So it's like, how do I do this stuff quick? So one of the ways I've tried to learn how to tell my conspiracy to prove it is that I've learned that parts of my evidence, it's like, well, because I've learned, I'm so far advanced on telling my story that I've learned how to adjust. And I said, well, maybe I don't try to prove the story the normal way how I prove the story. So I started thinking of different ways. And it's like, okay, well, one of the ways now that I've thought about it is like, I'll show information that should not exist. Okay, that with my story being true, that's why this stuff exists. But if my story wasn't true, this would not exist. And that's the thing about when people really understand more about it, when you understand my story, what you'll really see is that, like, what I'm going to show you here, is that Diana Ross is actually, she's been telling the story. She's been documenting her true life story. Now, you've got to remember, at this time, there's no internet. People are not thinking that the internet's going to come upon in their lifetime, and that we're going to be dealing with this internet as the way it is right now, to have access to all of this stuff. Okay, so when Diana Ross is documenting this stuff, she knows in the future that there's going to be advancements and people can go back, that this stuff is there and it's documented. But she's not really thinking this is going to come back in boomerang back on her in her lifetime. She didn't think this was going to happen. That's why she was so blatantly and direct about telling certain things like this. And so what I'm saying is that these words of what Diana Ross is saying, when you actually understand the real story, because like I said, I've done a real investigation. Because I've done the real investigation, I understand that these words can't exist. In the real world, for what Diana Ross is talking about here, when she calls Smokey Robinson her first love, and you'll hear that Arsenio Hall, he specifies to her, he even says, oh yeah, I should have specified, and she says, oh, you mean man love, and Arsenio says, oh yeah, well, I should have specified that. So when they're talking about man love, they say it, they make a specification, oh, you mean man love. That's a real form. That means there's a sexual connection to it, not just a little, who was the first guy you kissed, okay? That's the difference between the significance when she clarifies, oh, you mean man love, and he says, oh yeah, well, I should have specified that. So that's the difference when they're saying that. Right there clarifies that we're not talking about a guy that she just kissed and she's, oh, this is my first love. We're talking about man love. That's a real love where there was some form of a sexual thing going on. That's what she's talking about. And so when she says Smokey Robinson, the reason that this can't exist is that Smokey Robinson is dating Claudette Robinson. Okay, so when Smokey Robinson meets Berry Gordy, he's like 17, Claudette's like 15, and Diana Ross is like 14. Okay, so Diana Ross is calling her first love Smokey Robinson. So at the time when Smokey Robinson meets Berry Gordy, Claudette, who becomes his wife, she's in the band with Smokey Robinson, and she's dating Smokey Robinson. So they're dating. So Smokey Robinson is dating, when he's 17, he's dating the 15-year-old Claudette. Diana's only 14, okay? And Smokey Robinson never broke up with Claudette there. He dated her, and then he married her like a year later than that. Like a year later, they get married, okay? So, and she's in the band. So then, and then through the 60s, Claudette with Smokey, she was trying to have babies all the time. But what happened is she was having a problem having miscarriages. So through the 60s, Claudette has like 8 miscarriages, I believe I heard was the number. 8, she miscarriages like 8 times. But she does have 2 kids. She does have 2 kids, Tamla and Berry. That's the name of Smokey Robinson, and Claudette's children is Tamla and Berry. So imagine, so that's what you've got going on during the 60s, is all that time when Smokey Robinson's trying to have kids with his wife, right? And so there's times when she's not on the road. So let's say Diana Ross is messing around with Smokey Robinson at that time. Now that would be, Diana Ross would be 18 years old at this time now, because now when she's actually with Motown and she's on the road with them, she's at least 18 years old at that time. Smokey Robinson's married to Claudette. Claudette's in the band. She's part of the Motown family. Claudette's actually the first female artist signed to Motown. That's what I'm talking about when you people, if you don't understand the significance of Claudette, she's important. She's an important woman in this thing. And she was with Smokey Robinson the whole time. So then what I'm going to show you here, when Diana Ross calls Smokey Robinson her first love, this should not exist. That's what I'm saying. Not only should it not exist, it can't exist. There's no reality of a situation where Diana Ross should be calling Smokey Robinson her first love, unless my story, like I said, my story's true. And when you understand the true thing, that Diana Ross actually got pregnant by Smokey Robinson when she was 14, because Smokey's dating Claudette, but Diana then gets pregnant by Smokey Robinson, okay, because she's in love with him. She has a kid with him. That kid ends up becoming Michael Jackson, okay? So Michael Jackson's a big star at this time. When she's on Arsenio Hall, Michael Jackson's already grown up and been a big star, okay? So can you understand the fondness now of what she has for her past experience with Smokey Robinson? That she had that experience, and not only did that experience lead to this kid who's the future kid of Michael Jackson, that experience got her to get the direct connection to Motown, which leads to her having her career as the Supremes. It leads to everything, right? Everything revolves around that moment. That's why she speaks here about who's her first love. She speaks about Smokey Robinson, because she's got this big story with Smokey Robinson that in the real telling of the story, that should not exist. If she was flirting around and messing around with Smokey Robinson, she wouldn't be talking about that. There's no reason for her to tell that story. It makes her look bad. It doesn't document anything that's positive for her, except the only reason that she doesn't care about making herself look bad is because the telling of this story is what leads to her being the mother of Michael Jackson, which she's extremely proud of, and she definitely wants the world to know that. So now listen to this. Like I'm saying, this can't exist. This only exists because of my story. When you actually know the background, there's no reason for her to ever be talking about being in love with Smokey. And you can tell that when she's talking about being in love with Smokey, she's young, because she talks about then after that, Smokey brings her to Motown. Okay, so listen how she tells you here. And you can tell that she's young. It's in the neighborhood. It's right around the time when I'm saying she would have got pregnant. And at that time, she's 14 years old. And Smokey's dating Claudette, which becomes his future wife. And she's a Motown artist. It's so disrespectful on every level. That's what I'm telling you. When you actually know the real story, this can't exist. This can't exist unless my story's true.
Who was your first love, though? Yeah, who was that?
You mean,
that
are you
first guy
talking
you kissed?
are you talking about man love?
Oh, yeah, I should have specified that. I'm sorry.
Smokey Robinson was my first love. I really loved him. You know, I have stories. People think my life or my career started with Motown, but really it started with Smokey. Smokey lived on Belmont. We lived on the same street. I was very close with his cousin, Sharon Burston. And I used to sleep over. You know, I had kids that sleepovers at Sharon's house. And I used to listen to the Miracles sing in the basement. And that was before I came to Motown. That was before the Supremes. And to me, I loved him. Because there was a time where when I first heard his record on the radio and I realized that you might be able to sing and make a record, I mean, it was like major time. So I think maybe first love of maybe it was Smokey.
Maybe it was Smokey. So her whole conversation about what she's talking about there. And see how she totally says it's like, she totally clarifies when she says, I'm in love with Smokey, and she clarifies the time. She says, just to let you know, I'm not messing around with him when it's Motown time and he's married to Claudette. That's why she clarifies that. She has to clarify to let you know that this love of hers took place when she was younger. She's like, no, I used to live on the same street as Smokey. I used to sleep in his goddamn house. I mean, I get mad about this shit because I'm just like, do you fucking people hear what she just fucking is saying? And that's like when people talk about evidence, you need DNA evidence. Why would I need DNA evidence when I have Michael Jackson's mother explaining what happened? She was in love with Smokey Robinson. He lived right down the street. She used to sleep in his house. This is before Motown. This is before I came to Motown. Okay, well, girl, before you come to Motown, and Smokey Robinson, you know, he gets married, you know, how old are you then? That's the whole question. There's one question around this. It's like, wait, Smokey Robinson, it's like when you're 15, Smokey Robinson's married to Claudette. Okay, that's all there is to it. When you actually understand, when Diana Ross is 15 years old, Smokey Robinson's married to fucking Claudette Robinson. He marries her. Diana's only 15 years old at that time. And Smokey's married. So whatever she's talking about has to have taken place before that. Why in the hell would she be on Arsenio Hall talking about being in love with Smokey Robinson when she's 14 years old? And she's serious as hell about it. Oh, you people don't know. No, it was Smokey. He's the one that did everything. He's the one that brought me to Motown. It was all because of Smokey. I heard his record on the radio. That's when I realized, oh my God, I'm going to go follow Smokey. This can't exist in the story that's been telling out there. It can't exist. But it clearly does exist. And why does it exist? When you see that it perfectly lines up exactly with the story that I'm telling. It's not even like kind of lines up. I mean, it's perfect. And it can't exist unless my story's there. And why would she be telling the story? It's another thing. Just the fact that she's telling the story proves my story's right. Because she wants the world to know that she's actually is the mother of Michael Jackson. She wants to, and think about like right here in this is Arsenio Hall. So just in my head, I'm thinking around, it says here 1991. Okay, think about the star that Michael Jackson is. Okay, he still hasn't been accused by any the pedophile allegations in 91. Michael Jackson's the biggest star in the world. Okay, can you see the mother? She's the mother. She can't tell people that Michael's her child. But she can tell this story for later on for somebody that happened to be me that came and did the proper investigation and she left this stuff behind. I wouldn't have had the proof to prove my story unless she had deliberately left this stuff behind. And for somebody like me to see it and understand what she was actually talking about. And when you actually understand the story, then it's like the point of what I say. This is hardcore evidence because this can't exist. When you actually know the real story, this can't exist. And then when you know the story that I'm telling, and when you hear what she's talking, it's like that lines up perfectly, which is clearly obvious that my story and what I've done and with this investigation, it's right. I know I'm right. I've got the evidence piled up in piles and piles and piles. But this is just one little clip. I have to show you those piles. It's every little thing I got to show you. And so what happens is what I try and ask people to do is start investigating my videos. Go look back through my videos. Start doing an investigation. What will happen is once you get clear on the story that I'm telling, then you're going to be able to ask me the proper question of what you need to clarify the situation. Then I don't have to make all these videos to explain it to you, because after you've got the story, you're going to be able to ask me the one question that you need to know. And then I've got all the information. So when you ask me that question, I'm going to know how to answer it for you. Okay, but right now I don't know the piece of information that you need that's going to help you see the whole thing. Okay, that's why I keep doing all of this stuff. But if you would do your own investigation into my work, what you're going to find then is that you're going to have a better understanding of the whole story of what I'm telling. Once you understand the actual story of what I'm telling, like I said, then you're going to start seeing the stuff, and you're going to be able to start asking the proper questions. And you're not going to have to go out and do the investigation, because I've already done it. So once you just do some research into my investigation, that will then enable you to be able to ask me proper questions. And you won't have to do any investigations, because I will be able to answer. Whatever question you give me, I can answer it. Except if you don't know how to answer a proper question. If you think, why does Michael look like the Jacksons? If you think that's a proper question, then I'm sorry. You just are not qualified to even ask a proper question. That's an opinion-based question. It's not a fact-based question, because the actual facts of that question is the reality is that the Jacksons are a product, and you were sold a product. Product has brand name recognition. It has to look a certain way. It has to have an image. Everything of what we were sold, it was Michael to the Jacksons, was this under the umbrella of this brand name recognition. The fact that we all see Michael as Jackson as a Jackson, we never saw it any other way. Of course you're going to see it that way. And then you're going to come back at me and I have to explain to you, why are you seeing it that way? Because they wanted you to see it that way. So don't ask me that fucking stupid questions. That's an opinion-based question that when I come back and explain the real facts of what it is, and then you can't understand it because you can't understand that that was an opinion-based question in the beginning, that's a question you got to answer for yourself. You've got to answer to yourself. Why did I see Michael as a Jackson when he wasn't? Answer that damn question for yourself. Stop bothering me with your petty fucking questions, because I'm here hitting it hard. I'm in the real world dealing with the real shit. I just can't find any weak motherfuckers who can stand up to what I'm fucking challenged I'm putting down.